sing that with yours too.
Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udiraye namaskareshu nishyam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhakti naishtiki.
Reading from Canto 1, Chapter 17, Text 24. In the age of Satya, truthfulness, your four legs, first of all, who's speaking? Do you remember? Two. Arm of the bull. So right now, he's speaking to Dharma the bull. Your four legs. In the age of Satya, truthfulness, your four legs were established by the four principles of austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness. But it appears that three of your legs are broken due to rampant irreligion in the form of pride, lust for women, and intoxication. Text 25. You are now standing on one leg only, which is your truthfulness. And you are somehow or other hobbling alone. But quarrel personified, Kali, flourishing by deceit, is also trying to destroy that leg. So the leg of truthfulness. 26. The burden of the earth was certainly diminished by the personality of God and by others as well. When he was present as an incarnation, all good was performed because of his auspicious footprints. Can you imagine just how the citizens or those who knew Krishna being on the planet, how comforting that must have been? Right? Krishna's here. Oh, we can run to Krishna for shelter. So on the Earth planet was, at the time, the burden was greatly diminished. Krishna has since passed away. Now she, the chaste one, being unfortunately forsaken by the personality of Godhead, with tears in her eyes, for now she is being ruled and enjoyed by lower-class men who pose as rulers. Maharaj Parikshit, who could fight 1,000 enemies single-handedly. Imagine one hand. Well, actually, sorry. Single-handedly doesn't necessarily mean one hand. It means like as a single person, right? Yeah. I was thinking like you're holding a bow out. That would be pretty amazing. They could probably do things like that. Maharaj Parikshit, who could fight 1,000 enemies single-handedly, thus pacified the personality of religion and the earth. Then he took up his sharp sword to kill the personality of Kali, who is the cause of all irreligion. And then we go to text 32. If the personality of Kali, irreligion, is allowed to act as a man-god, what's the Sanskrit for man-god? Sanskrit. Naradeva. Nara means what? Man, and Deva, God, right? So it's another way of saying demigod, like a sun, right? But man god is a literal translation of Naradeva, so I thought that was very interesting to read in English. If the personality of Kali, irreligion, is allowed to act as a man god or an executive head, certainly irreligious principles like greed, falsehood, robbery, incivility, treachery, misfortune, cheating, quarrel, and vanity will abound. Okay, so we're going to do the purport for text 25. Yeah. We'll see. Okay, so text 25, I'll just remind you what this verse is. You are now standing on one leg only, which is your truthfulness. You are somehow or other hobbling along. But quarrel personified Kali, flourishing by deceit, is also trying to destroy that leg. Idanim dharmapadaste satyam yevartayet yatah
yataha.
Tam jigrikshadhyadharmoyam.
Tam jigrikshadhyadharmoyam.
Anritenai dhutapkali.
Anritenai dhutapkali.
Idanim dharmapadaste.
Idanim dharmapadaste.
Satyam nirvartayet yataha.
Satyam nirvartayet yataha.
Tam jigrikshadhyadharmoyam.
Tam jigrikshadhyadharmoyam.
Anritenai dhutapkali.
Anritenai dhutapkali.
Idanim dharmapadaste.
Idanim dharmapadaste.
Satyam nirvartayet yataha.
Satyam nirvartayet yataha.
Tam jigrikshadhyadharmoyam.
Tam jigrikshadhyadharmoyam. Anritenai dhutapkali.
Idanim dharmapadaste.
Idanim dharmapadaste.
Satyam nirvartayet. Satyam nirvartayet yataha.
Satyam nirvartayet yataha.
Tam jigrikshadhyadharmoyam.
Tam jigrikshadhyadharmoyam.
Anritenai dhutapkali.
Anritenai dhutapkali.
Idanim dharmapadaste.
Idanim dharmapadaste.
Satyam nirvartayet yataha.
Satyam nirvartayet yataha.
Tam jigrikshadhyadharmoyam.
Tam jigrikshadhyadharmoyam.
Anritenai dhutapkali.
Anritenai dhutapkali.
Idanim dharmapadaste.
Idanim dharmapadaste.
Satyam nirvartayet yataha.
Satyam nirvartayet yataha.
Tam jigrikshadhyadharmoyam.
Tam jigrikshadhyadharmoyam. Anritenai dhutapkali.
Right, so let's do the word for word together. Idanim, at the present moment, Dharma, O personality of religion, Pada, leg, te, of you, Satya, truthfulness, Nirvartayet, hobbling along somehow, Yataha, whereby, Tam, that, Jigrikshati, trying to destroy, Adharma, the personality of religion, I am this, Amritina, by deceit, Anita, flourishing, Kali, quarrel, personified. Together, let's do the translation. You are now standing on one leg only, which is your truthfulness, and you are somehow hobbling along, which quarrel personified, Kali, flourishing by deceit, is also trying to destroy that leg. So the opposite of truthfulness is flourishing by deceit. That's how he's destroying the legs, by deceit. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The principles of religion do not stand on some dogmas or man-made formulas, but they stand on four primary regulative observances. Namely, these are the ones we're going to cover today. Right? So these four. So, austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness. The mass of people must be taught to practice these principles from childhood. Austerity means to accept voluntary things which may not be very comfortable for the body, but are conducive for spiritual realization. For example, fasting. Fasting twice or 4 times a month is a sort of austerity which may be voluntarily accepted for spiritual realization only, not for any other purposes, political or otherwise. Fastings which are meant not for self-realization but for some other purposes are condemned in the Bhagavad Gita 17:5-6. And actually, in where Prabhupada's origin in India, that was more common, to fast for a cause, right? And actually, even during the 60s, 70s, that time period, people would often do that, like make a statement of fasting for political purposes, to get the attention of the country and of the government. Do you think of any particular person Similarly, cleanliness is necessary both for the mind and for the body. Simply bodily cleanliness may help to some extent, but cleanliness of the mind is necessary, and it is effective by glorifying the Supreme Lord. No one can cleanse the accumulated mental dust without glorifying the Supreme Lord. No one can cleanse the accumulated mental dust without glorifying the Supreme Lord. Simply bodily cleanliness made the bumper stickers. A godless civilization cannot cleanse the mind because it has no idea of God. And for this simple reason, people under such a civilization cannot have good qualifications, however they may be materially equipped. We have to see things by their resultant action. The resultant action of human civilization in the age of Kali is dissatisfaction. So everyone is anxious to get peace of mind. This peace of mind was complete in the Satya age, because of the existence of the above-mentioned attributes of the human beings. Gradually, these attributes have diminished in the Treta Yuga to 3/4, in the Dwapara to half, and in this age of Kali to 1/4, which is also gradually diminishing on account of prevailing untruthfulness. By pride, either artificial or real, the resultant action of austerity is spoiled. By too much affection for female association, or to those that were attracted to, right? Like in that way, wanting to enjoy on a lusty level. Cleanliness is spoiled. By too much addiction to intoxication, mercy is spoiled. By too much lying propaganda, truthfulness is spoiled. The revival of Bhagavad Dharma can save human civilization from falling prey to evils of all description. I'm going to read that last sentence again. The revival of Bhagavad Dharma can save human civilization from falling prey to evils of all description. So, just off the top here, don't scroll up, but just scroll up to the verse. Okay, so what are the 4 pillars of a healthy society? What is one? Just name one of them. So, truthfulness.
Austerity.
Okay.
Cleanliness.
Cleanliness. Mercy. Mercy. Yes. So say them again. Austerity, cleanliness, truthfulness, and mercy. Make a song. So I'd like to cover those today. So in the context of understanding why we practice these regulative principles in our life and their connection with these values. These are values of society, of a healthy society. You know, you've probably in your sojourn as a human being have come across these lists of values. You have to figure out which ones are your top. Every person has kind of the values that resonate most with them. And who here has seen who knows what I'm talking about right now?
Personality test.
Yeah, it's not a personality test. It's a list of values. Like there's many words that someone might consider value, and then you look at the list and you hone in on your top. Like, what are your real motivator values in your life? Right? So these 4 are the foundation of a healthy spiritual society. These values. So let's look at cleanliness first. And we're going to look at what the benefit of it is globally, collectively, societally, and then also individually. Why is it important? So Prabhupada was very, so these 4 are the strong on this point that cleanliness is next to godliness, and especially in the context of what? So let's look at deity worship. So especially within the temple environment where deity worship is the ultimate, and kitchen, right? Cooking and cleaning go hand in hand. So Yamuna Devi was, the one who sings Govinda prayers in the morning. She was an expert cook, and so some of you may have seen her cookbook. She has several, but there was one big one, and the title Yamuna's Lord Krishna's Cuisine. Yes, it's a big white cover. So many recipes that she brought together, and in there she talks about cleanliness also. But what people who would cook with her would mention that she was so diligent about this point. She was very methodical and very attentive with what she did in the kitchen. So as she would cook, she would clean, so that by the end of the cooking, there was practically nothing left in the sink to clean. It was just ongoing cleaning, cooking, so that together. So that creates that mode of goodness, mood, and environment from which I can serve the Devi, cook for the Devi, peaceful mind, and with devotion. So what does it do? What does cleanliness do for us as a group or as a society? So that creates that mode of goodness, mood, and environment from which I can serve the Devi, cook for the Devi.
First thing comes to mind. Your heart, to clean mind, you have a cleaner external life. Is that the question?
Yeah, so you're saying that by cleaning the consciousness, the environment is also cleaner? Yes.
So it's social standards.
Yes, exactly. So as the consciousness of a group or a society moves upward, the consciousness of how we maintain the environment also grows. Even concern for the planet, right? The air quality, something like that, comes from a higher consciousness. Someone who's in a low consciousness is not going to bother themselves with the air quality, like checking it, making sure, let's try to improve it, let's put garbage receptacles here in the park. That comes from a higher consciousness.
I was going to say, it makes a society organized and structured because it's not all over the place. It's cleanly, which makes it to where it's an easier place for society to live in.
Yes, yeah, peaceful place. Okay, so have you? Okay, I'll get back to that when we talk about the individual. Yes.
I was going to say,
Just like
makes the society organized.
when you have higher consciousness, you're thinking about cleanliness for the environment, for the collective, for the society, but also the level of cleanliness of your body and your surroundings, your home, whatever space you're in, dramatically affects your consciousness. I would always tell people when I would teach, like, imagine coming to the temple and everything is so clean and everyone is, freshly showered, and you can sit down and you can focus so nicely on your japa, and your consciousness is so elevated. But then imagine the example I would use is like you're in a dark room and there's like zombie posters on the wall and there's like dishes that haven't been cleaned and laundry on the floor, and it's like total mess. Like trying to sit down and like think clearly or meditate in that environment, the consciousness just naturally goes down, and I'm sure we've all had the experience. If you just clean, then the consciousness elevates.
Yes, that's actually what the point I was going to bring up too, is that on an individual level, when we clean, or even if we have a desk where we want to do a project, let's say I want to start on my book or my paper, if my desk is cluttered, like, and I'm trying to scramble to find the pen or find my keyboard, mouse, or whatever, underneath papers, it's just not a good foundation to get a clear, focused mind. Whereas if I first take the time to scrub down the desk, have it all simple, one pen here, everything decluttered, organized, then from there, there's so much more ability to offer service.
You might be familiar with this psychological term called environmental engineering. We use it for something else also, but what it's used for in psychology is exactly what she's saying. If you want to change your consciousness, change the environment.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. Yeah. So even on a mundane level, people recognize that and study that, the effect of the environment on the outcome, on productivity, feel inspired to be working right now. So yes, so globally, individually, we have this theme that by cleanliness, we're able to enter the mode of goodness. It's a gateway. It's not the only gateway, but it is a necessary step to lift my consciousness into the mode of goodness. Now, which regulative principle do we follow that supports that value? Illicit sex, right? No illicit sex. That's the principle that we vow at initiation. And how does that connect? So we're talking about there's cleanliness on different levels here. Right? There's physical cleanliness, making sure the floor is swept. Then there is a more subtle cleanliness of the consciousness that Prabhupada spoke about in the purport of the mind. So if I'm distracted by thoughts, specifically around sex desire, and especially around illicit sex desire, what happens is it dirties the consciousness. It, what do you call this? Mental dust. Yeah. The accumulated mental dust. So when I'm involved in wanting to enjoy my senses, particularly in that way that's not grounded in spiritual principle, and sex desire is one of the most entangling ways that it can manifest. Because why? Why is that? What happens when I'm consumed in that desire? Yes.
It's attachment.
Okay, attachment. Yeah.
Well, it's like the highest level of sleep gratification.
Right. Yes. It's Prabhupada would say it's like the culmination of what everyone's looking for in this world. Right? Working so hard, and many purports Prabhupada talk about this. Working so hard day in and day out, and it's just for a little bit of enjoyment, a little bit of sex enjoyment. Like that's the thing that everyone's going towards. The whole world revolves around it. Yes.
Because you're thinking about yourself.
That's a really, yes. So thinking about oneself. Anything else? Yes.
Like Yamarav said a year ago in this class, he said there is no activity that brings the consciousness lower and more cemented in matter than sexual activity.
Yes, and we're specifically talking about sexual activity separated from Krishna consciousness, right? Because Krishna and Bhagavad Gita, but Krishna and Bhagavad Gita talks about how actually that same, you could say, binding knot can be used in a way that's auspicious, right? So it's not like we're saying all sex desire, but yes, that's a really important point that, going back to what Max said, is just this idea that when I'm consumed in thinking about how can I enjoy myself, and that's the strongest way that it manifests itself in. Right? So I want to enjoy my senses, and I want to enjoy this person, I want to enjoy with this person, right? Then I'm entering the space of being in the ego. Like I'm thinking I'm the doer, I'm the controller, I'm the body, I'm the enjoyer, I'm the senses, I'm all of this is me, and I'm gonna enjoy it, right? And so if you think about it, it's the most direct way to become entangled in that ego, in that thinking that it's all about me and I'm the center of this universe. And so therefore, that's one reason that we're careful to follow this regulative principle, because it's the quickest way to contaminate the mind and the consciousness. And that's how cleanliness and no illicit sex fall together. The cleanliness of the mind, cleanliness of the consciousness, so that it doesn't accumulate this layers and layers of accumulated mental dust.
And it causes guilt and self-sabotage as well.
Good points, yes. Guilt and self-sabotage. Yeah, guilt when we do things that afterwards we feel that cringe factor, like what did I do, right? I'm sure we all can relate to that. It's not necessarily maybe in this context, but there's more mild ways that shows up. For example, there's a birthday party and my eyes are bigger than my stomach, and I think, oh, I'm just gonna eat so much pizza, and it's maybe 8 o'clock at night, and I eat a whole thing of it, and then in the morning I feel like, oh, stomach's hurting, it's hard to wake up. So yeah, then we feel that regret or that guilt. Guilt is a more deeper version of regret.
It's not just doesn't stick to just that particular activity, then it's so unnatural to try to enjoy so much. People start doing intoxication or just taking unnatural means to support the desire because your body is not able to enjoy it. Like at old age, you start taking other medication just so you can enjoy a little bit,
Yeah,
but it harms the body in other ways.
that's a really good point. Yeah. So it feeds onto the other, it can contribute to the other vices, right? Like, especially, yeah, intoxication and illicit sex go really often hand in hand. One will lead to the other. Intoxication often contributes to illicit sex, on campuses and things like that. So, yeah.
It says it's like an itch. And, you know, when you itch, it like itches more and more and more, and then it like eventually starts to bleed. Right. So it's not like with that illicit desire, a lot of people experience, you know, some other things. It's like, you know, if you're hungry, hopefully if you eat and then you're satisfied. But the people who get caught in that, it just like increases and increases and increases until it can actually ruin one's life, ruin one's family, ruin, you know, especially when there's illicit connections. It can really damage family units, society. It can degrade women and men.
Yes, yeah. So it's not just, so it can start off by being, oh, this is just me and this person. Selfishly, like we're focused on that. But it, like you said, it has a ripple effect into society, and it can create a lot of chaos, instability for everyone else. Yeah. So, any final thoughts on cleanliness? Yes, Jonathan.
This reminds me of a question I've actually been having for a long time. This is like perfect time to answer it. I agree with everything was said. Like you clean your room and your desk, you're gonna feel like a new person. Temple's clean. People who like kind of have. I feel like Brandon's a good example of somebody kind of everywhere he goes, things become real organized and clean behind him, and so you know, and then it affects everybody in the ashram. Like, okay, you know, this place is clean. We want to keep it clean. So I want to set that aside because before I came to Christian consciousness and started talking about, you know, cleanliness, elevating your consciousness, some of the worst people I've ever been friends with in my entire life, both friends and girlfriends, were like OCD clean. And they were completely sexual deviants too. So I just want to ask, you know, how does that work?
It's a good question. It's a good question because whenever we see something that doesn't seem to go together, we're like, wait, the fact that you notice that is a thoughtful question. So we have in the Srimad Bhagavatam descriptions of great demons. They're called demons, right? Demoniac, they're all about me and wanting to manipulate others and control others, right? We have Hiranyakashipu comes to mind. And a lot of these great demons, they were very good at their behavior. They spoke eloquently. They could quote scripture. They were clean. They were organized. They could, right? And so therefore, you've brought up a, I was going to share this near the end, but you brought up an important point that just by having these four qualities, it's not enough. It's not enough. They're not a goal in themselves. They're not the end goal. So if I have a scalpel, and if I use that to heal someone from degenerative eye condition, then I'm using that scalpel for its highest purpose. If I take that same scalpel and I go and murder someone with it, then the scalpel is not, it's just a neutral object. But now I'm taking it and I've done something evil with it, right? And so it's what I do with these values that determines whether or not they're even of value or not, right? So when we talk about them, we're talking about them as the basic 101 foundation from which we can now practice bhakti yoga. And that's where we want to be. They're a launching pad to practicing bhakti yoga. But they're not the end because, like you said, someone might be very clean and fastidious and just a jerk to be around, right? Like we don't want to be in their company. So yeah, we don't stop there. From here, this is our foundation. That's why Prabhupada said 4 regulative principles are just basic human life. And from there, now we practice Krishna consciousness and we develop the qualities of a Vaishnava, Vaishnavi, right? That go even further. And there's the 26 qualities of a Vaishnava. There's many different lists, but the 26 that are the main ones that we meditate on, we try to improve. But as another side note, though, is, and here's something a little bit of a maybe comfort, if you struggle in one of these areas, is that by planting oneself in the company of those who naturally follow this by their Vaishnava character, we plant ourselves in the company of devotees, then these, by some spiritual osmotic effect, these kind of get, oh, I want to, like I'm seeing my roommate, they're just so clean, like you said, where Brandon goes, if other people feel like lighter, and it's just, you know, the effect of that is a ripple effect. When one person does it, those around them want to do it too. It's uplifting. That's the benefit of ashram life. And vice versa. If someone's really dragging others down, right? That's why ashram life is always a balance of trying to help each other. So thank you for bringing that question up. It's really good. So let's move on to truthfulness. And truthfulness is connected to which regulative principle? Gambling. How are they connected? Pretty self-explanatory. So when someone's gambling, there is the consciousness of one who's gambling. It can easily go into that place of, I no longer care about doing something honestly. I just want the product, and usually the product is money, right? Money, wealth, some material gain. And so when I'm in that place of, oh, I'm just going to click the button one more time. I'm just going to give a few more dollars to that because I might get the ticket, right? When I'm in that consciousness, then it's very, very easy for me to slip into, well, I'm just going to take that one more ticket and they're not going to notice, right? Like it just starts to become, gambling sets one up for that duplicitous mentality. So truthfulness, why is that so important on a collective level? Why is truthfulness so important in our society? So when we have, right now in Kali Yuga, we see, and currently in our current society, we see it all pervasively, that people use duplicity and lies, even like straight up lies, to get followers, to get liking, get people to follow them and to vote for them, right? And to put them in office and things like that. And so it's just pervasive in Kali Yuga that there's a constant self-centeredness with wanting to ban my own ego, and then at the expense of honesty. So a person's not going to go into office and say, well, the reality is that, you know, I need to sleep 8 hours and I only have so much time in the day. I don't really know if I'm going to get to your issue. Right? They're going to say, no, I'm going to solve all your issues. And they're going to speak in that way because that's what people want when they're voting for somebody. Right? So it just comes naturally with the especially the political world, that people have to speak in a way that's a little bit artificial, not always genuine. And what that does for society is it creates a lot of chaos. People don't know anymore who to trust, and they're questioning. Right? I feel like in the last decade or two, it's just been very pervasive with that. Even the, what is that name of that, where people are on social media and they say fake news, right? It's like, who do we trust, right? But it comes down to that because people struggle with who to trust. Who are those honest persons that are serving us just because of genuine spiritual desire to care for us, or are they trying to get something from us and then we don't trust, right? What about on an individual level? How does it affect your life?
Feel like untruthfulness is a lot of times the main cause for relationships to crumble. Right. You know, bad communication, untruthfulness also leads to a lack of trust, right? Yes. A lack of trust, and truthfulness is the way that we build trust and build community and build relationships, and from relationships and community, everything builds. So if you take that foundation of truthfulness away, which leads to untruthfulness and distrust and disharmony, then relationships, communities, families falls apart, and everything falls apart from there.
Yeah, so it's from very foundational. Like if there's truth is broken between two people, that can have a huge ripple effect. Again, we're talking about ripple effects in the family, in the wire. It can just create disintegration.
And also, if you lie to yourself, that's like one of the biggest things we have to do in spiritual life is be honest with ourselves, in order to be able to advance. Like we have to see, for example, this is an anartha within my heart that I need to work on, or this is, be open for feedback. Like when we lie to ourselves, we disconnect ourselves from others, we disconnect ourselves from ourselves, and we ultimately disconnect ourselves from Krishna.
Yeah, when we're lying to ourselves, I like how you said it affects others, because it affects our journey, of course, but it affects others because if I'm being disingenuous, if I'm like showing that I'm so perfect or whatever, if I have that kind of mask up, others feel like, oh, well, they can't be real too, right? It creates this pressure for everyone to be faking it, kind of. Whereas if one person's genuine, is here, honest soul, then others feel inclined to also be like that and to come to them for help as well. Was there another hand raised? Oh, yes.
Also add in terms of like when you are the person lying, then your whole life is built on this false foundation, and so much of your time, attention, energy, effort is spent trying to uphold this thing that's not true, and it becomes this completely dissociating experience to live in that lie. And so it's actually impossible, not only that you are disconnecting, but it's impossible to connect to yourself and to others because you're living in a false reality.
Wow, yeah. It's so subtle, but so profound what it does. And it demonstrates why authenticity is so important in our spiritual journey. Okay.
Often says, say the truth, then you don't have to remember what you said.
Yeah, there's no more like, oh, what did I tell that person?
Yeah.
Oh, and did it line up with that? What I told that, right? That's a really good point. That's funny.
The truthfulness leads to integrity. So, like being truthful with yourself, being honest with others.
Yeah, and having a society of integrity is going to be very appealing to others who want to join. There's a whole community of people living in integrity. It's very attractive. Yeah, I see your hands, but I do want to get onto the other two because we have like 5 minutes. So I'm going to just touch briefly on mercy. Mercy, we know, is very much connected to which regulative principle? No mediating, right? And that's kind of pretty apparent, pretty obvious. It's foundational. It's one of the greatest sins that we can go through in our journey here in this material world is to harm another. Oh, thank you for the clock there. I kept looking at it. I realized that's what I was so we have an example of Brandon taking on some organizational. So mercy is not just not killing someone, but it's much more than that. Right? That's just the basic. We don't kill people. We don't harm others, nonviolence, but it goes beyond that. There's layers, there's more subtle, more meaningful, on a subtle level with other humans, how to be merciful in our speech, how to be kind, how to be compassionate, how to have empathy. All those things create, again, a community, a family, individually, having some compassion for ourselves on our journey. It creates a mood of kindness. And by me really making it my prayer to Krishna, to Lord Chaitanya, please help me to be an instrument of your kindness to others. Let me, when I walk through this world, let my kindness and care for others touch their lives so that they feel inspired by your kindness and care, right? The Lord's kindness and care. So we become little walking previews, you could say, of the Lord's mercy by our behavior. So when I'm compassionate to a newcomer or to the old comers, right? Like it's not just to the newcomers, it's those who have been here for a long time. Let me say some kind words. Let me be encouraging. Let me really hear them when they're struggling. Those are all acts of mercy. And with myself, let me, Mahatma Prabhu discusses this a lot, so I'll just say in brief that self-compassion is also necessary for our spiritual journey. Because why? If we're constantly berating ourselves, I'm being hard on myself all the time, then it's it just is constantly taking up mental space from what I need to be doing. It doesn't help. It's just backfiring. So mercy in a nutshell. And then austerity. Which regulative principle do we avoid? What behavior do we avoid in order to have more austerity? Intoxication. Yeah. So it's just, and again, these regulative principles are just the basics. There's other ways in which austerity, we have levels. Now, someone might say, well, it's not an austerity for me not to drink because I never drink. Like maybe someone just never drank their whole life or they never smoked or whatever. So it's not an austerity. But what it does is it creates a foundation from which now I can practice austerity. Why is that? It's a little subtle. So why it is that intoxication, what it does is it disrupts intelligence. So it short circuits intelligence. We just had it the other day when there was the game, when we won the game, right? There was lots of that happening, right? Lots of short circuiting of the intelligence by means of intoxication. You must have all heard that, like horns, like fireworks now. It was just like really chaotic. And then there was somebody who got harmed on wherever they jumped off.
He climbed on the traffic light.
There was a man who jumped on a traffic light, and when I heard that, I mean, it's tragic in a sense because he actually hurt himself. He might still be in the ICU, but he actually fell down onto the pavement. But he was jumping on this traffic light, and I was thinking, like in my mind, I was thinking, there's no way that he wasn't intoxicated because that's just intoxication is what enhances that thoughtless behavior. So if my intelligence is being disrupted, how can I possibly practice austerity? Because austerity, in order to have any kind of austerity, I need to have what? Intelligence in check. The only way to do anything austere is to have some level of intelligence. So austerity requires intelligence, and intoxication takes intelligence away. So now you can see how they can't go together. So anybody who wants to, even on a material platform, anyone wants to get a goal met in their work, it requires austerity, waking up early, being methodical, putting in many hours, right? All these things that require austerity. As soon as there's intoxication, all of that's gone. There's no more. And so that's why there's so many help groups for people who struggle with addiction. Right? There's 12 steps, and there's so many different support groups for people really struggling because they know from experience that when I'm in this addicted space, like I can't do any kind of methodical, they don't call it austerity, but really any of those things that are going to help me in my life, reaching my goals and things like that. So yeah, so we have compassion for those who, and sometimes it's ourselves, right? It's not like we're all free of this proclivity, but we see it all around us, and we sometimes struggle with it with our phones, right? These addictive things, this intoxication that comes from scrolling. It's not just substances; it's also what we see, what we take in. So we have compassion in Kali Yuga because it's just the way that is really spiraling us down with this addiction. And so therefore we try to find support, help do that. And then from there, once we reach that sober platform, just the very basic sober platform, then we can add on. Okay, now let me try to go to bed a little earlier. Now let me try to wake up a little earlier. Let me do something austere because I know that when I do something austere, it actually sharpens my senses and I feel this joy from within come out, right? It's just some deeper joy. Okay, so we covered cleanliness, truthfulness, mercy, and austerity. And each one of these could be, it's like a whole workshop. They're really profound pillars of values of society. And like we've mentioned, it's not they're not enough. They're just the foundation. And from there, we now grow our character, we grow our qualities, with the purpose of becoming loving servants of Krishna. That's the only thing that really matters at the end. Our deepening of our love for Krishna. So let me see the battery in that talk is actually good. So any final question or comment?
We talked about how intoxication is austerity, like no intoxication is austerity. And then in the purport it says, by too much addiction to intoxication, mercy is spoiled. So I was just wondering.
Yeah. Yeah, in different places they're interchangeable. They're described in different ways. So too much addiction to intoxication, mercy is spoiled. Okay, so let's look at that for a moment. So and that's again kind of apparent too, because when I'm getting into the intoxicated space, I'm becoming what? Self-focused about my journey, my experience, like my fun, my pleasure, and then often at the expense of others. We see that happen. We see that happen at, maybe we don't literally see it, but we hear it happening at campus parties and things like that. When one person's intoxicated, they might take advantage of someone else. Mercy is lost, right? A lot of crime is committed, yes, while intoxicated. Yes, so then the mercy is out the window. So actually, it's a good point that you brought that up, because a lot of these regulative principles, they support multiple values. I was just doing it in a very straightforward, one-to-one, but they actually, you can take, it would be a really fun experiment. You could, not experiment, but it's a little activity for yourself. You could write out these 4 regulative principles on a piece of paper and then see how do they connect to all of these. Cleanliness, truthfulness, mercy, austerity. And you could probably make a case for each one of them, for all 4, right? And for other values as well. So thanks for pointing that out.
Bhatsi Maharaj talks about this, and he says that in any mode, be it goodness, passion, ignorance, if you make it the goal, the consequent result will be the opposite. Instead of becoming more of goodness, you become proud. And more of passion, what happens in this particular to Nate's question, what happens to one who enjoys too much? Maharaj says that his heart becomes very hard like a stone. And even from a physiological point of view, he says it's complete misuse of dopamine system in your head. It messes with you. And he says there was a study of the serial killers. In all of them, the dopamine system was completely trashed. So when you enjoy too much, you become completely used to sufferings of others.
Oh wow! Yeah. So when we enjoy too much, we become impervious to the sufferings of others. Very interesting. Yeah. So thank you all so much for contributing. Very wonderful thoughts. Srimad Bhagavatam.